I got this in the mail today, Archie the Decision #1, a one-shot that is published by Archie Comics. It's all new. It's a full-length story. It's 20 pages, and it comes out on Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. Um, I'm actually recording this 2 days before that, August 26th. So how did I get it early? Well, I have a mail subscription to Archie Comics one-shots. It's called the Classic Archie Mega Sub, and I've mentioned it in previous videos. Where if you go to archiecomics.com and you go under print subscriptions, you can get a 6-issue subscription to Archie comics that are done in the classic style, because Archie also does like modern type stuff these days. But if you're interested in the Archie comics that look like that, and you don't want digests, you want the regular 32-page regular size comic, they have a subscription. It's only 6 issues, which is a bit of a drag because I'd be happy to get a 12-issue subscription. But it's a good value for money because the cover price on this comic is $3.99, as it shows there. But I only had to pay like around $2 or so. They had usually it's like $13.99 for 6 issues, $14.99, something like that, maybe $12.99. A little while ago, a few weeks ago or so, they had a sale where it was like $11.99 for 6 issues, which is like $2 each for brand new comics, which is, you can't beat that. So I was very happy that this was part of my subscription. Now, I wasn't sure if this was going to be part of the subscription because normally it's the Archie and Friends and Betty and Veronica Friends Forever one-shots, and on also sometimes the Christmas Spectacular or Summer Spectacular one-shots that I've covered in previous videos. And then also recently the facsimile edition, the Betty and Me #16 facsimile edition, also showed up as part of the subscription. So sometimes you're never really sure what you're getting, but it should be classic Archie. So again, I was very happy this was part of the subscription. Now, this is a one-shot written by Tom King and drawn by Dan Parent. Now, I'm familiar with Dan Parent's work. He's written and drawn Archie comics for decades, and does a great job of it. But I'm not familiar with Tom King, but I understand he's like a popular writer for, DC and places like that, superhero comics. So this was kind of billed as a sort of almost like a big event. Archie the Decision. He's finally going to decide between Betty and Veronica, which has been done before. But so I'm not going to give spoilers about this comic. I'm going to try not to anyway. I'm not going to show the ending of his decision, but even before that, I kind of knew going in there probably wasn't going to be a real decision made. It's sort of like those old Superman versus the Flash, which one is faster, and there would always be some sort of out, so they wouldn't have to make a decision about who was actually faster. So it's one of those type of stories. I knew that going in it was going to be like that. But by the way, here's the back cover. There's good and bad about the comic, and bad is like not really all that bad, but just something to keep in mind, so that you're not disappointed. If you come in thinking that this is going to be like some awesome story, it's not. It's a very slight story. It's the way I would describe this story is a old 1970s Archie story where something happens, he does something, and then the whole town ends up chasing him, down all through Riverdale, and then you have all these, becomes like a mad, mad, mad world type scene, and it's very so that's basically the whole plot. I'll get into the plot in a little bit here, but it's a very slight story. This it takes up a whole comic, 20 pages, but back in the day, back in the 70s, they probably would have told us in like 7 pages, and you would have gotten pretty much all you needed to have gotten out of it. But here it's sort of stretched out and tried to play for laughs. Now, the other quote-unquote bad thing about this story is that occasionally I found myself thinking, I don't know if Archie would do this or say this or behave this way or talk this way, and some of the other characters too. It was sometimes they felt a little out of character to me, but then I don't know if I was just getting kind of nitpicky about it. And after a while, I found myself, I noticed like a typo here, which I'll get into. But so then I found myself getting even more nitpicky since I was starting to pick nits here. Um, but anyways, the first thing that seemed kind of odd to me was that Archie is sort of laying in bed, looking at Betty and Veronica and trying to think of, which one is the one for me, and Jughead is likewise lying in Archie's bed, looking at pictures of hamburgers and thinking about, how he can't choose between them. Now, some of this, it just, it's like, okay, that's a comical type thing, but it just didn't seem like, why are there photos of hamburgers? Jughead doesn't have to choose between hamburgers because he can have both, and it's, you know, it's not the same situation. And just the idea of them laying around in bed and Archie laying around mooning over, it just seemed kind of uncharacteristic. Usually, Archie seems like a kind of active character, the all American guy who's like, he's always up to something. He's doing some hobby or he's, you know, doing something for school or for helping people. He's always has some sort of activity going on. It seemed kind of unlikely that him and Jughead would just be lying around in bed and Archie trying to figure out which one he loves best. It just seemed kind of like uncharacteristic for Archie. He's much more of an active guy who things sort of happen to, I think anyway. But anyways, it seemed kind of silly, that whole thing. It just seemed kind of uncharacteristic, I thought. And so we get like more pages. There's like, so far we've gotten 5 pages of them just basically being in Archie's bedroom. Archie decides to flip a coin. That's like the basis of the whole story. But the coin flies out the window and it goes bouncing down the street. And so the rest of the story is the coin bouncing down the street. They're got to chase it to see which way it lands, heads or tails. And so we know which one he's going to pick, Betty Veronica. Now, this part seemed a little out of character too, where, Betty and Veronica are just like, oh, we are just going to forget about Archie and enjoy each other's company. And, it just the way that they were talking just seemed kind of uncharacteristic of them. There was a thing here too where Betty says, may lighting, we'll see if I can get that in better. May lighting strike us down if we even deem to think for one minuscule second about Archie. And then she says, how much do you think really does lighting actually hurt? Well, this is obviously a typo because she means lightning, right? So why does it say lighting twice? And so once I saw that, it was like, okay, now I'm starting to see like mistakes. But anyways, and then our Jughead spills the beans, and there is just a lot of dialogue here, as you can just see from these panels. It's a lot more dialogue heavy than even like a Bob Bowling story. It's like just a little too much. It kind of slows things down, I think, too. And the stuff about this proposal, I accept this proposal. That's what Betty had said before. I like this proposal. I accept this proposal. It just seemed kind of off. It's and this whole thing too. I didn't like this where they're like running and having this big long conversation. Now the good thing about this is that you do have, and then here's another thing: Big Ethel wrestling with Moose. Now that does seem kind of unlikely, doesn't it? Big Moose wrestling with a girl and Big Ethel, and as if like it's obviously Big Moose can, arm wrestle anyone. That just seemed a little off. But the good thing about it is you have all these cameos from all these different characters. So you have this sequence, and then this is sort of repeated in a subsequent sequence here, where you have Cheryl Blossom, and you have, Josie and the Pussycats, and then later you have Mr. Lodge, Mr. Weatherby, Miss Grundy, Coach Cleats, Miss Beasley, the various Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, so you have all these characters, even like the Shield. Now they mention a whole bunch of. There's like Jughead Jones is a jelly bean, I think her name is. Is that like his little sister? She was like popular for a little while. But like the Shield is in here, and I think this is supposed to be Katie Keene because they mention like all these characters. Well, it's hard to see on the camera there, but it's like all this big huge dialogue lists like all these characters. Some of these are like newer characters that have appeared in some of these recent one shots, I think. But Katie Keene is right here, I think, because they mentioned Katie Keene. But I don't know who these people are. Charlie. Well, that was another thing when I was starting to get nitpicky. When Archie says something like, "I'm not Lil Archie anymore." Let's see if I can find that bit. And I was like, wasn't he like, oh yeah, he says, "Listen, I am not Lil Archie anymore." But he was always Little Archie, like, wasn't it? The character, he wasn't called Lil Archie, he was called Little Archie, like with T's. So that seemed a little off to me. And that Wilkin boy is here. But anyway, so that's the good thing, is that you see all these, cameos by these characters. But again, I don't know who these Charlie and all these people are. If I did, I've forgotten. So there's no. It would be nice if they had said, Anyways, I'm not going to show the ending, so we're going to skip ahead. I'm going to scroll back here. Okay, so now the back of the book. The thing I like about these Archie comics, these one shots, is that they have the ads at the back. So I think Marvel and DC should start doing this. This would be. DC used to do this back in the late '80s with some of their direct sale comics, their Baxter paper comics, where they'd have the whole story and then they'd have all the ads at the very back of the issue. In Creepy and Eerie magazine in the '70s, they used to do that too. So that's the thing I like. So you have all the ads, the story isn't interrupted, then all the ads are at the back, and all the other text features and so forth. So there's this nice little thing here where Tom King, the writer, picks out his top 10 favorite Archie stories of all time, and then Dan Parent picks out his, and they talk about why. And they both of them chose the same one for this one story, Mr. Inferno, Betty and Veronica number 75 from 1962. But then there's the editorial page, and then there's an ad for Sabrina the Teenage Witch Annual Spectacular number 1, which comes out September 4th. Now this probably isn't going to be in my part of my mail subscription because it's technically not an Archie comic. It'd be nice if it was, but I don't think the Sabrina, or sort of the quote unquote non-Archie comics, I don't think those are part of the thing. And then I hadn't seen this before. This will be part of the classic mega subscription though. The Archie Halloween Spectacular. And that's going to be a one shot. Usually they have one new story in these one shots, and that's coming out October 2nd, 2024. And that's pretty much it. Then there's some more ads, for like the Betty and Veronica, the Betty and Me number 16 facsimile edition that came out recently. And there you go. So that's it. There's the stuff on the back cover about it. So it was all right. It's an okay comic. It was, like I said, very slight. It was nice to see the cameos from the various characters, but they're not really doing anything. They're just kind of, running around. And I don't know. It felt like it was missing something. And plus, the characters felt a little off to me, personality-wise. Some of the dialogue not only seemed a little off, they seemed to be talking, they would say thus and things like that. They said, I accept this proposal, things like that just seemed a little off. But maybe that was even added to it by the fact that there was so much of it. If they had talked that way in other comics, it was just like very briefly, like Veronica would say like one or two sentences, and Betty might say something like that as just one line, and then you move to the next panel. It wasn't like you had huge amounts of dialogue. So that is probably why I fell off. But anyways, on the other hand, that having so much dialogue does prevent it from maybe seeming as slight as it would have otherwise, because otherwise you would have read this comic in 5 minutes and been done with it. So it's overall it's a bit of a mixed bag. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it, but I feel like it was built up a little too much to be something more than it was. In the end, it's just basically a slight story, just a kind of a little fluffy. Nothing too important. Let's put it that way. But I was glad that they did a all new, full length story. A lot of these one shots, the lead story is only like 5 pages long. Here you had a 20-page lead story that was all new. So that was awesome. And I hope they do more of it. So for that reason, I would say go out and buy it. But I would caution, don't expect too much. It's not going to be, important. It's just going to be a light read. Anyway, that's my review. Thanks for watching.